And so we come to the end of another trip through the strangest annals of history. Thank you for joining me. We began in the shadowy heart of Europe's oldest libraries. Hallowed halls where knowledge is kept safe, behind locked cabinets and velvet curtains. They're tucked away in places no casual scholar may see, lie books that no one speaks of. Not blasphemous tomes, heretical tracts, or even particularly rare manuscripts. Just volumes that scholars whisper about in footnotes, reference only in burned letters, or blacked out in archived inventories. And yet they are real. What makes them real are the stories of those who have truly read them, those who have looked inside and lived to tell the tale. Such tales, while numerous, share striking similarities across the continent. Readers emerge forever changed, if not driven mad. They speak of bindings as beautiful as they are cursed, gilded in gold leaf, etched with indecipherable symbols and languages long dead. To look within, to cross the threshold into their pages is to court disaster. The most infamous of these volumes is known only as Codex Luctatorum, the Book of the Struggler. It first flickers into awareness in a letter written in 1491 by a Spanish inquisitor to the Bishop of Toledo, describing a volume that screams when opened and bleeds when read. Since no complete copy has ever been confirmed to exist, perhaps it is best to approach this story with a healthy dose of skepticism. But scattered throughout Europe are case studies eerily consistent with its alleged effects. Madness, unexplained fires, sudden disappearances, and in one case, a reader found dead with their eyes. Burned clean from their sockets, yet no heat damage present elsewhere. Perhaps the most compelling account comes from a private collector in Lyon, who in 1932 reportedly kept a book locked in a box of salt, iron, and thorns. He called it simply La Comba, the Struggle. He died whispering Latin phrases that do not appear in any known scripture. His library was auctioned, but the book was never listed. But perhaps the most compelling and tragic account concerns a young scribe named Elias of Moravia, who worked in the scriptoria of the Benedictine monastery of Melk in the early 1300s. Elias was gifted, precise, and devout, whose only flaw was curiosity. One winter, the abbot assigned him to copy a mysterious volume recovered from a ruined convent outside Regensburg. Bound in greenish calfskin, its title page had been torn out, and its contents were a maze of symbols, riddles, and fractured prayers. Elias noted strange patterns in the margins' tiny faces, open-mouthed, always watching. As the weeks passed, monks reported hearing Elias speak in tongues during meals, wake screaming from his cell, and once levitate inches above the chapel floor. The abbot, fearing demonic possession, ordered the book burned. But when they opened the scriptorium vault, both Elias and the book were gone. All that remained was his quill, stabbed upright into the stone table. Years later, a traveler in Transylvania claimed to have seen a man matching Elias's description in a forest shrine, copying words onto bark with a bone needle. When asked what he was writing, the man replied, "I must finish. It writes through me." Why would such books exist? And who would create them? Some believe they are early psychological experiments, texts designed to unmake the mind through linguistic paradox and sacred blasphemy. Others suggest they are repositories for knowledge not meant to survive. Names of dead gods, rituals older than writing, truths that bend the structure of human perception. In 1609, the astronomer Johannes Kepler wrote of a lost manuscript said to invert the heavens, where stars moved not around fixed laws, but around the reader's own gaze. That manuscript, sometimes called De Speculis Inversus, is rumored to reside in a mirror-sealed chamber beneath the Biblioteca Marciana in Venice. No visitor is allowed below level 3, a librarian there. When asked in 1998, simply replied, "We are not permitted to discuss the lower floors," yet the stories persist. In a village near, the chapel of St. Apollonia was closed indefinitely. After the local priest reportedly found a book in the confessional one that could not be moved, burned, or even touched. Witnesses say the priest aged decades in a single night. In a Parisian antiquarian shop, a blind man is said to sell pages torn from a book that writes itself anew each full moon. And in Istanbul, beneath Topkapi Palace, a tunnel wall bears script that only appears when lit by candlelight and viewed with eyes closed. The script matches no known language, but weeps when traced with the finger. If even a fraction of these accounts are true, then we must ask, are cursed books cursed? because of what they contain or because they reflect something inside us. Perhaps they do not harm all readers equally. Perhaps they resonate with something sleeping in the dark corners of our minds, stirring it to wakefulness. Maybe that is the true curse, not death, but recognition. And so, the libraries hide them, not just to protect us from their contents, but to protect the books from us. Because some knowledge remembers who dared to know it. Thank you for watching. In 2011, during a dig at the ancient Mesopotamian city of Lagash, a team uncovered the remains of a library containing thousands of clay tablets. A closer examination revealed that the majority were blank. Hundreds of thousands of years of progress in writing and mathematics culminate in a genre of literature so terrifyingly simple, it makes our skin crawl. What drives a person to write such books? And why preserve them? Why not destroy them? The truth may lie in obsession. The earliest known examples of blank books date back to 1771. The owner of a prestigious London printing shop entrusted with Queen Charlotte's personal stationery experienced a psychotic break and used the royal seal to brand an entire press run with the coat of arms. He then filled the pages with nothing else but the words "Lek mich im Arsch," which when translated into English means "lick me in the ass." This would not be the last time. We find ourselves compelled to fill seemingly infinite pages with senseless, obscene repetition. In 1832, a copy of Don Quixote was discovered in the Spanish town of Toledo, containing no text, but the words "Morte a Inglaterra," or "Death to England." In 1912, a man entered the New York Public Library and meticulously scratched the same phrase over and over again into the pages of every book in the Dewey Decimal System from 000 to 999. It wasn't until I moved out of my parents' house that I truly appreciated their generosity. Every day for my entire childhood, they let me use their bed as a place to bounce off the walls and scream at the top of my lungs. But now that I'm on my own, I miss that freedom. Now I wake up every morning terrified. Terrified that my landlord will come and check the ceiling for cracks. Terrified that he'll send me a notice to vacate. Books don't just hold knowledge, they record experience. But what happens when the two converge? We know little of the ancient tradition of grimoires, only that their purpose is to bind demons to the service of the practitioner. But as the 18th century gave way to the 19th, magic became less ritualistic and more scientific. One such grimoire was uncovered in the library of Aleister Crowley, bound in human skin and filled with sigils and diagrams, spells and prophecies. Its title page reads, "This book belongs to the property of Azazel, the angel of darkness. It shall not be opened, nor deciphered, save by him whom fate shall choose. For within it is contained the sum total of my knowledge, nor can any mortal comprehend that which is written therein." So begins one of the most unique works of fiction ever written, a novel called De Magia Moderna, or of modern magic by a mysterious author named S. Liddell, published in 1898 in a limited run of 100 copies. Like the fictional grimoire, the novel is filled with real sigils, diagrams, spells, incantations. But unlike its fictional counterpart, we know exactly what is written within, and the difference is disturbing. This book belongs to the property of Azazel, the angel of darkness. It shall not be opened, nor deciphered, save by him whom fate shall choose. For within it is contained the sum total of my knowledge, nor can any mortal comprehend that which is written therein. Every page repeats these exact words, written in a variety of 19th century typefaces, sometimes backwards, occasionally upside down. They make up the totality of the work, 220 pages of unbroken, unyielding gibberish. If grimoires were once a conduit for otherworldly power, then what of a book that writes itself? Is this to an act of creation or destruction, summoning or a warning? When Crowley scholar John Symonds attempted to read the book, he experienced convulsions and fell into a coma. He claims to have emerged from the other side of unconsciousness with bruises on his body shaped like the letters in the incantations. Many argue that such tales are elaborate hoaxes. But let us consider the artifacts themselves. Blank books, grimoires with nonsensical texts that induce illness and injury in readers. Are these the acts of a sane mind? Or does madness lurk behind the veil of apparent simplicity? If so, then we may have to confront the possibility that some things are better left undescribed. Some experience is best left unexpressed. After all, isn't it remarkable how closely the meaningless study of symbols corresponds to the meaningless chaos of our inner lives? Our thoughts, feelings, moods, impulses, neuroses. Can we really say that the impulse to order this chaos by instituting forms of knowledge is any less insane than the impulse to destroy this knowledge once it's been created? Perhaps both impulses are symptoms of the same illness. Madness, and the blank book, like the blank canvas or the blank page, is where the two impulses meet. Not in nihilism, but in a confrontation with the abyss, with nothingness, with the void. And on that note, I'd like to turn the page and end this video. Before we begin, I have a confession to make. I've never actually watched a single episode of Doctor Who. I know the basic premise of all the timey-wimey stuff, but I've never really gotten around to it. So when I heard that the actor David Bradley was playing the villain in this story, I sort of just assumed he was playing some kind of Dalek or Cyberman or whatever the heck those things are called. Turns out he's actually playing the Master, another iconic Doctor Who villain. Whoops. But enough about my own ignorance. Let's talk about stories. This story was written by a writer, and it originally aired in 1973. In many ways, it's a very classic horror story. There's a mysterious book, an isolated old house, and a terrible curse. But of course, being a Doctor Who story, there's also lots of time travel, alternate universes, and stuff like that. This story introduces us to a character named Otto Capel, who's written some books on old languages. Then in 1883, while staying at his house in the country, he gets a package from someone unknown. Inside is a small book bound in black cloth without any markings. There's also a note which reads, quote, "For the one who still hears the margins." Capel doesn't know what this means, but he soon discovers that the book isn't really a book, at least not in the conventional sense. When he opens it up, he finds that the pages are blank. But when he shines a light through the pages, he can see ghostly words that seem to be etched into the fibers of the book. Even stranger, though, is that the words change depending on who reads them. When Capel shows the book to one of his students, the boy can only see his mother's lullabies. And when a deaf archivist comes over to look at the book, he feels vibrations coming from the pages, like tiny heartbeats. As time goes on, Capel becomes increasingly obsessed with the book, neglecting his health and sanity in the process. Eventually, he's found dead in his study with a smile on his face. The book is missing, but it turns up again years later in Berlin. However, this time it contains writing in red ink that looks like dried blood. The writing tells the story of how Capel's obsession with the book led to his madness and death. And at the end, there's a final line which reads, quote, "He completed the book. It begins now." And that's where the story ends. There's a lot going on in this story, and I'm sure I missed a bunch of details, but I think at its heart this is a story about the dangers of obsession. Capel is a man who's dedicated his life to studying languages, but when he finds a book that seems to defy all understanding, he becomes consumed by it. He spends all his time with the book, neglecting his friends and family, and in the end, it destroys him. Now, of course, this story was written by a writer, so there's a lot of other stuff going on here. But I think at its core, this is a very human story. I think anyone who's ever become obsessed with something to the point where it consumes their life can relate to Capel in some way. Whether it's a book, a person, a job, or anything else, sometimes our obsessions can get the better of us. And in the end, we have to be careful that they don't destroy us. If you enjoyed this video and want to hear more stories like it, stay tuned for more content. Till next time, goodbye. It's about time we talked about the curse of the Cimmerian, because after everything you've just heard, how can we ignore this? In 1834, Sir Minto Bingley held up an ancient manuscript before the Literary and Philosophical Society of Manchester. A wave of cold air washed over him. His candle sputtered. Then, as though shoved aside by an invisible hand, the book fell shut. "I have been struck with a degree of terror," he stammered, "which I never expected to feel. Such an event would shake the belief of any rational being in the continued safety of his own existence." A chill wind seemed to rise around him, and the room grew dark. Some say these are the makings of fiction. haunted book with supernatural powers, but the account was published in the Society's transactions. So let me present to you another detail. It's one verifiable and irrefutable. Did you notice, dear listener, that throughout the entirety of this tale, not once did I mention the name of the author? For the tales themselves are not my own. They are drawn from research conducted by Dr. Jacob Maras, whose work serves as the basis for this story. Yes, they are fictionalized, but they are far from made up, and so we come to a crossroads. Here are three truths. No. 1. The books do exist. Scholars have verified them. Their bindings and contents are as described. Some titles even match. No. 2. The stories are real. We know this because we know the authors. Elias, Therese, Capel, even the author of that fourth footnote, whose identity Maras uncovered to be the Venetian explorer Zoan Pizzigano. In truth number 3, this may be the most important of all. Maras was right. All of these books are chapters of one singular work. Only the modern world has separated them, scattering their leaves across the past 500 years. What we call the curse of the Cimmerians is merely a symptom, side effect of the book's true power, which is not to drive men mad, but to write itself through their minds. In 1977, a curator at the British Library named Paul Nixon stumbled upon an esoteric text bound in black leather. On the title page, scrawled in silver ink, was the name Sefer Yetzirah. As he lifted it, he felt the air thicken and the hairs on his arms stand on end. He turned away to get a better look and found himself unable to move. Panic seized him. He dropped the book and fled. From that day, it became known as the Silent Book, having driven one man insane within 5 minutes of contact. But listen closely. Do you not hear it too? Can you not feel its power? Does the book not whisper to you? But do not fear, dear listener, for you are safe. I am your guide, separating you from the texts. And if you wish to hear more of the story, I will tell it. But remember this, the moment I am gone, the book begins to speak. Now I have told you the story of the Cimmerian manuscript. Now I will tell you the story of the curse of the Cimmerian. For although the books are one, their histories are many, and we must understand how they became what they are. Our tale begins in the year 1520. In Kingsburg, a Dominican friar noticed a boy stealing an apple from a fruit vendor. He brought the boy back to the market, intending to scold him, but the lad was unafraid, even impudent. "What?" the friar asked. "Are you not afraid of God, of hell?" The boy sneered. "Fools fear the darkness," he said, eyes gleaming. "But it is nothing but letters." That night, the friar dreamt of a city drowned in ink, devoured by forgotten tongues. And in the morning, he found the boy again, standing before a gaping hole in the wall. "We meet again," said the friar. "Come with me, boy, and I will teach you the Lord's Prayer." But the boy shook his head. "There is nothing beyond this," he said, "only what is here." And with that, he stepped into the wall and vanished. The friar chased after him, falling through the hole to find himself on the other side. It was like stepping into a different world, save that everything was written in strange, swirling script. "Who are you?" asked the friar, turning to see the boy watching him. The boy shrugged, eyes wide. "Who are you?" the friar cried. "And where is this place?" "Where?" the boy echoed. "Why, where are we?" Suddenly, the friar understood. "You have stolen the key," he gasped. "The gateway to the kingdom of shadows. You have stolen it from the angels." And the boy, startled, finally answered, "I don't know, I just wanted to see." But the friar knew there was more, so he reached out, touching the swirling script that covered every surface. "Show me," he commanded. "Show me everything you see." And instantly the wall rumbled and shifted, opening up to reveal row upon row of books bound in shadow and dust.